but there's a long tradition of these types of voices of conscience. So I just immersed myself in the world of St. Sabina and spent time with Father Mike and his peacekeepers and the community there, and tried to learn as much as I could.
We love you on Windy City Live. Yes, we do. Tell us, how did all this happen? How did this come about?
Well, I play me. I play Val Warner in Chirac, which is really cool. So when people see this movie, they are literally seeing Val, and I am a reporter in the movie.
We talk about the violence, but what can we do personally?
I think we got to be engaged, and I think engaged in a number of things. In our block, in our home, in our neighborhood, we got to be engaged. We got to fight the issues. We got to fight a government that is abandoned, you know, whole communities on the south and the west side. We got to fight a governor who's cut out every youth employment program, who's cut out violence prevention programs, who's abandoned our communities and the poor and the vulnerable. And I think we got to reach out to our brothers on the street and love them and respect them and help them, not just demonize them.
My participation is only because of Mr. Spike Lee, our leader, our director, and he reached out to me and blessed me with the opportunity to be in this film and said that his mission was to save lives in the south side of Chicago.
I'll just say like this. First of all, give you the history of coming to Chicago and telling my jokes as a young cat. I'm 37 now, started about almost 15 years ago. Elroy taking me under his wing, let me do some jokes here and there for the radio stations and all that kind of stuff.
We are more than that. We are more than that. We're greater than that. And I feel like in places like this, or Chicago, or whatever you want to call it, the hood, whatever you want to call it, like, it's too much attention dwelled on the negative.
I learned that no matter what you do and how much of a genuine heart you have, and if you're coming from a good place, people are going to criticize if they don't agree with what you're doing.
Hi, we're from Empire, and you're watching the Higher Learning Network.
So how long have you been standing here?
Not too long, like an hour. So we're moving in fast. This is a good sign.
Yo, what's up? It's your man Tony Schofield from 106.3 Chicago's R&B, and you are watching Men on Higher Learning. Now, I used to hang around with some men that was into some higher learning. It just wasn't that kind of higher learning, but I got myself together now, okay?
What is it that you do in your quiet time, in your meditation time, that allows you to bring us the films that you do?
I sit courtside in Madison Square Garden, world's most famous arena.
And you're watching CTV on the Higher Learning Network. Yeah, right.
So I think, unfortunately, what's happened starting with Reagan is a consolidation of corporate and military power in this country. And we see it now with the Supreme Court ruling that corporations are people and therefore they can buy and sell elections. And you know, the book I've written is a lot about the murder of Fred Hampton and us exposing that the FBI through its COINTELPRO program actually ordered the murder of Fred Hampton. They used an ambitious political person in Chicago, the States Attorney Edward Hanrahan. They gave him a floor plan of Fred Hampton's apartment and they said, there are guns there. And afterwards they gave their informant a bonus and congratulated themselves on getting the local police to go in and murder a young black leader. Fred Hampton had distinguished himself in high school, fighting for everything from black girls who could to be homecoming queens to a swimming pool and recreation center for blacks, to more black teachers. He led a march to the city council in Maywood demanding swimming pools for blacks. And he early on became a target of the police. Fred was the chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party from when it opened in November of 1968 to when he was murdered in a pre-dawn raid on December 4th of '69. So I've written this book to describe a little bit about who Fred Hampton was, how significant an effect he had on the people who listened to him. I think Fred was an alternative to gangs and drugs in Chicago, which we see daily taking such a tremendous toll. And Fred talked about responsibility of the community. He talked about organizing kids to set up breakfast programs, to change the way the police dealt with the community, to have a health clinic. So I think Fred was an alternative, and with the murder of Fred, I think in many ways the city of Chicago lost a potential leader, and I think some of the violence that continues today was as a result of killing and imprisoning young leaders like Fred Hampton.
That was an excellent segue into my next question. Was about to ask you about what difference can youth really make in the world that we live in today. And on page 82, you wrote, "The other side of me believed Fred's murder proved the legal system didn't work. What good did it do to have lawyers and courts and a constitution and legal precedent if the police, under the direct control of the prosecutor, could murder you in your bed?"
Well, that was part of my reaction. I was a political person. I was a lawyer. Here I saw a person I knew and revered and had just seen 2 days before killed by police acting under the state's attorney. And so part of me said, well, what good does it do to go to court? And part of me said, well, that's what I'm trained to do, and that's what the survivors of this raid are asking for. And so we started the People's Law Office 40 years ago. It's still going strong. One of our main cases was to expose John Burge, the police torturer in Chicago, which I was involved in, and my partner, particularly Flint Taylor, and the rest of the office has been instrumental in originally exposing Burge, getting people off of death row from whom he had tortured confessions, and now there's going to be a criminal prosecution of Burge coming up very shortly. So exposing government misconduct has always been what our office has been about. And I think we've always been inspired by people like Fred Hampton.
Has there been a backlash towards you from the community or from anyone, whether it's political or police or the state's attorney, or has there been, and how has that affected you, if it has?
Well, I think one of the interesting things is when Fred Hampton was murdered, even though the black community was divided about the Panthers, they did not accept the fact that a young black leader could just be killed in his bed. And so what Hanrahan didn't expect was the fact that the community came together, and everybody, political officials, Ralph Metcalf, who had been was a congressman and had been loyal to Daley, and a young state senator named Harold Washington spoke out, and Renault Robinson, the head of the Afro-American Patrolman League, called it a murder. So I think the community came together then, and it was that coming together which eventually led to the election of Harold Washington as the first black mayor of Chicago.
You talked about, you mentioned Randall Robinson, and I can't help but to see the similarities how, and I'm asking this out of naivete because you're no longer in the United States, or is Mexico?
No, I'm in New Mexico.
New Mexico, so
Right.
that is
Yes,
part of the
sure.
United States. But just on the other side of that is Mexico.
Right.
And Randall Robinson has been known to be a fighter for many, many years, but he decided to up and leave the United States. How do you, what's the word I'm looking for? How do you see yourself as compared to him leaving the United States and you're not here, so to speak,
certainly
anymore?
understand the disillusionment of people with what's going on in this country, particularly with the fact that so much energy went into electing someone who we thought could bring about basic change in this country. And now we see that that's not happening, whether it's because he doesn't have the will or it's because his opposition is so strong, but we don't see those changes that we elected him for actually happening. And in many cases we see the same old policies continuing. And so this is sad, and so people could say that this country is owned and operated by corporations, and they're going to determine the policy, and I certainly wouldn't disagree with them. On the other hand, I guess as someone who's lived here and seen things, And as a lawyer in this country, the skills I have are really kind of to fight here and to expose what's going on here. And so I don't think I would be as effective. And sometimes you have to struggle to struggle. That's what life's about. As Fred Hampton said, dare to struggle, dare to win. If you don't struggle, damn it, you don't deserve to win.
Because in the book you say, in a conversation to Perry, you said, I know my way is a fair trial and I'm not going to get it. So you fight despite the fact that you know you're not going to get a fair trial.
Right. At some point we realized that we're going to get a fair trial, but we still had to both expose the conspiracy that led to the murder of Fred Hampton and also the injustice in the court itself.
So what's the solution? You've written this wonderful book that I must admit, and people who know me know I'm not the kind of person that just will have someone on and say something good about the book and it's all fluff. I honestly read this book from cover to cover. I started on day one and I think I was through with it in 2 days. 3 days.
I think the fact that you read it and it's been made a difference in your life is what the book is about. It's about people who do stand up and people who do fight for change. And it's about whether the fight for social justice is the most meaningful struggle, at least if you're a lawyer, probably in your life. And that can take forms of fighting against incarceration or fighting mass incarceration or fighting against climate change or the people behind it or for health care or numerous other things. But I mean, what makes our lives worthwhile? What makes us feel like we're making a difference? And I think it's a commitment to bring about social justice, to bring about equality, and it's a tribute to the people, and particularly Fred Hampton, who dedicated their lives to that.
I remember being a child and hearing about that assassination and how the city was just in turmoil, and I felt helpless as a child. I didn't think that there was anything that I could do. I'm thinking of the child who may be watching this program right now, and they may feel the same way. Well, that was 40 years ago, and they're still killing black men. What is the one thing that I could do that would help further this movement to keep this insanity from getting any worse than it already is?
I think believing in yourself, that you and young people like you do have power and can make a difference, and that if you put your voices and your minds together, you can bring about the changes that you want to do. And then in order to do that, you have to make a commitment to the society and overcome a lot of the individualism, I think, that so much takes over today, and say, no, making money or getting that good car is not my primary objective. Of course I want to have a decent form of life, but I also want to make my life make a difference and bring about the kind of changes that I think are necessary. And I think at the end you'll see that is the most satisfying thing you can do.
Well, I want to thank you so very much. I know you've got a conference call coming up at 2 o'clock, but I want to thank you for taking the time, getting off the plane, coming directly here, and all this. There's no sunshine today, but you brought the sun with you. So I want to thank you for being yourself and being committed to the work that you do. And I know that my godmother, Mrs. Iberia Hampton, thanks you from the bottom of her heart. Were you at the Northwestern University? Were you there that day? I had to leave early, so I couldn't get right here at Northwestern University. There was an event there.
Where I spoke. It was about this book. You mean the panel?
I did get the footage. Yeah, I'm having a senior
It's
moment.
on C-SPAN. If you go to www.hamptonbook.com, the book launch was at Northwestern Law School, and it was a number of African American scholars who added a lot of depth to an understanding of the Panthers.
Now I have to ask you this question. I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Right.
You've got a call in about 10 minutes.
That's it.
Because when I told some people that you were coming here to do this interview, and people are sometimes limited in their thinking, and their first thing was, well, why is this white man writing a book about a dead black man? What difference did they pay? They probably paid him off too.
Well, it's 40 years, and for the 35 years, this was probably the most significant case and maybe event in my life, the murder of Fred Hampton. If somebody else had written this book, I would have been totally happy. But nobody did for 40 years. So it wasn't like I jumped on the stage as soon as it happened and said, I'm going to write a book. 40 years had passed, and it was an important story to tell. And last December 4th was the 40th anniversary of Fred Hampton's murder. So as somebody who both knew Fred and was moved by it and was involved in a 13-year legal battle to uncover the conspiracy that led to his murder, I felt I had something to tell people and a story to tell. And if somebody else certainly can write their version of it, and they're certainly welcome to also. I'm not claiming I'm the only person who was affected by Fred, and I'm not saying it's the only story. It is my story as a memoir. It's what I remember. It's some of the things that we did. And things that other people may have did, or their feelings are certainly legitimate also. I'm not claiming I've written the authoritarian biography of Fred Hampton, but it's what I knew of Fred, how he affected me, and how we engaged in this legal battle.
Hi, my name is Heather Schooler, owner of the company Help Me Finish, and newly developed business billionaire breakthrough system. I want to talk today about my friend Zelda Robinson, who has created this mindful breakthrough system, which is absolutely phenomenal. And you want to know what I learned from it? I learned that I can stop the negative patterns in my life through one simple word: stop. And I think about that all the time. Every time I see a red light, I remember to stop. Every time I see a stop sign, I remember to stop. So even when I'm having a bad day and I can see a stop sign, it'll remind me of what Zelda's taught me. So if you guys haven't taken her program, you need to sign up for her program, because we all need to stop the negative voices in our head, and she's got the tools to help you do it. I'm Heather Schooler, owner of Help Me Finish, and I hope you guys sign up. And when you sign up, have a fantastic day every day, because that's what Zelda's going to teach you to do.
Is Monday morning a struggle to get out of bed, into the swing of things? Well, don't worry, you are not alone. Join us for thought-provoking, stimulating, and mindful conversations on higher learning with Zelda Speaks for your Monday morning mindfulness sessions on Blog Talk Radio, The Female Solution, Mondays, 7:30 until 9 a.m. Be sure and send your ideas, thoughts, comments, and suggestions. Experience mindfulness moments with the mindfulness/stress relief coach, Zelda Speaks. And thanks for sharing the mindfulness moment tip of the day. Stay on purpose, stay empowered, and stay tuned to your next session of mindfulness on higher learning with Zelda Speaks. Make it a mindful day. And thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Julie Myrista. I'm with the American Heart Association, and we have been up to our ears in sweetened beverage tax, so I so much appreciated the 5-minute meditation today that allowed me to get back to my center, take a few deep breaths, and really focus on what's important.
Shalom and good God morning, and thank you for joining me today on blogtalkradio.com, The Female Solution. It's your Monday morning mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Mindfulness stress release coach. I'm just here to make your day better.
Hi, good God afternoon. My name is Miss Joanne, and I love Zelda doing her, helping us with our mind and breathing. That is so therapeutic, because where there's no peace, we have to bring our own peace. As a matter of fact, yesterday I started reading a book by Joyce Myers, and that she just confirmed it this morning. I have to bring my own peace. I have to encourage myself, and that's what she did for me this morning.
How did you feel the moment? I remember reading in the book when I think you were with your first or second wife or something. I don't remember, but what was it that came over you when how did you feel? What was that experience like when you heard that for an effort that you had put so much time, effort, and energy and love into? You had to, because I know you love what you do. What did that feel like?
When he was killed, or
when you got the news
of Fred's murder? Well, my partner knocked on my door at 6:30 in the morning, and he said, "I just got a call. The chairman's dead, and I'm going to the morgue." And I went and interviewed his fiancée, who was lying in the bed next to him when he was murdered. And she told me about how the police came into their bedroom. She was pulled out. She heard one policeman say, "Is he dead yet?" She heard 2 shots, and then, "He's good and dead now." And so that story stuck in my mind. I'll never forget that. And it was because we heard the survivors' versions that we were able to confront the police version, which was basically a lie.
Now, in your daily routine, or is there such a thing as a daily routine for you? What does your average day consist of?
Well, it's very different now. I was very active as a civil rights lawyer with the People's Law Office for over 35 years. Some time ago I moved to New Mexico. I continue to be a civil rights lawyer, and actually I've spent a good part of the last 6 months going around and telling the story that's in this book, and telling about who Fred Hampton was and what a dynamic, charismatic figure he was, and the fact that this government kills.
Are there examples of leaders where you're at now who may be experiencing the same thing? Or similarities?
I don't know that the government doesn't have to resort to political assassinations frequently. We know that they certainly threatened and may have been responsible for the death of Dr. King, the same with Malcolm X, the same with Fred Hampton, and other Panthers in that period. And so I think the message is out there. If you're too militant and you're too revolutionary and you're black, you better watch out. And I don't see anyone right now who the government probably sees as that much of a threat. That's not the form of repression that they would prefer, because it carries some liabilities. It exposes what the government's about.
In your day-to-day activities, when you wake up in the morning, what's your routine?
Well, it really varies right now. It's very different than what it was. As a civil rights lawyer, I basically lived and died preparing cases against the police, exposing police brutality, fighting the police union, working on people who'd been wrongfully convicted and framed up. And that was a pretty 60-hour-a-week job from 1969 till about 2003 and 4. More recently, I took off 3 or 4 years to write this book, and went back to Bennington College and got an MFA in creative nonfiction, because I didn't want to write the book as a lawyer. I wanted to tell it as a story. And so it took me a while, and that's why it's both personal, but I also try to make it interesting to the average reader, and you don't have to be a legal scholar to read the book.
I appreciate that. I thank you for that, because my first thought was, oh my goodness, a lawyer wrote the book. Am I ever going to get through the legalese?
Well, maybe if I hadn't gone back and taken that course and spent 3 years writing, you probably wouldn't have gotten through the book. Because I started writing it trying to argue it like a lawyer, you know. And then I realized, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to tell this story, and I'm going to tell what actually happened, and I'm going to put it in lay terms. And, you know, John Gresham doesn't write, you know, as a boring lawyer. He's a storyteller, you know. And so to try to write it more in that style.
Did you ever feel harmed or threatened because of the work you were doing then and for putting it in print?
I don't know. I think we were so caught up in what we were doing, and I guess maybe we felt because we were lawyers and white, we weren't going to get the same kind of repression that was happening to the movement. I know when we opened our office, we actually put some weapons in a wall because we were afraid the police might shoot in.
Wow.
This was '69, and then when we moved several years later, we'd actually forgotten they were there. So that was the time that we feared that kind of reprisal.
Wow. Well, you have no fear now. Yeah, but I want to give this to you, because in your daily activities, whatever it is that you do to stay empowered, I want to give you a copy of Inspirational Conversations. That's one of the books that I've written. A page a day keeps your sanity at bay.
Thank you. I
Okay.
can use this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Stay on purpose, stay empowered, and stay tuned to more of Higher Learning.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jeffrey Haas, and I am the author of the book, The Assassination of Fred Hampton, How the FBI and the Chicago Police Murdered a Black Panther. It's the story of the conspiracy to murder Fred Hampton and the legal battle to uncover those responsible for its murder, for Fred Hampton's murder. And you can get this on Amazon or at your local independent bookstore. My website is www.hamptonbook.com. You are watching the Higher Learning Network.